think we've got quite a few folks that have logged in to join us today. And so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm happy to have you all join us as we explore the benefits of having care managers. As part of your team, I'm excited to have Julie Smith with me today. My name is Michelle Anderson, and I am the Vice President of Sales for Thrive Senior Living. We have senior living communities from New Jersey down to Florida, in Georgia and Alabama. So we're kind of all over the Southeast and the Northeast part of the country. And today we're going to explore some of the different senior living options, just give you all an overview of senior living options that are available to you, just in case you're not familiar with the different options. And then we'll hear from Julie on the details, I guess, of senior living and care managers and how they partner together and what a care manager does. So we'll get going here. Like I said, my name is Michelle Anderson. I'm with Thrive Senior Living. I've been in the senior living space for, 24 years now, and in healthcare for about 34 years. I've worked with a couple of different organizations and just really had the pleasure of serving literally thousands of families over the years as they walk through that journey of senior living and trying to make decisions on what the best thing to do is and when the right time to do it is and how to fund it and all the different decisions that go into moving to senior living. And so I'm really thrilled to be talking with you all today and just sharing some really good information. I know after this webinar, it will be sent out to you. So if there's anything that you want to reference, we'll also have ways for you to get in contact with us and just be sure that all of your questions are answered. So Julie, why don't you share a little bit with everybody about you?
Well, thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Thrive, for inviting me to be with you today. I'm Julie Smith. I am the Director of Operations at Caring Strategies Care Management in Huntsville, Alabama. I have been in this industry, Michelle, not quite as many years as you, probably closer to 17 years, right? My niche for the longest time has been in home care, home health, home solutions for family care partners and their loved ones. And then now as a part of Caring Strategies for a while as the Director of Operations and Care Management. For 12 years, I've been a certified senior advisor. And so a good amount of my time the last 17 years has been providing education for families, for healthcare professionals, and that's something I really enjoy doing.
It's fantastic. I know I have enjoyed knowing you over the years and some of the work we've done together, and so it's a real treat to be doing this today. For our listeners, I want to just take a minute to walk you through a general spectrum of senior living in case you're not familiar with it and some of the different options that are available to older adults today. And so, typically there are times that people do receive care in their home, and then they typically find that can be challenging, or maybe the person is still not getting the social stimulation that they need, or they're not having enough care in terms of hours of having someone there. And so people often start looking at senior living options as more than just help with those activities of daily living. It's a lifestyle. It's the social aspect. It's the different programs that come with it. And so there's things like active adult living, and that is for people who are often looking to maybe downsize their home and just have a broader social lifestyle. And that's when we often see people move to the active adult communities. It is very much an apartment for older adults. And then the next step typically in that journey, and it's where we often find most older adults starting their journey in senior living, is in independent living. And in independent living, most communities offer a couple of meals a day, housekeeping services, and some transportation type services. Again, the higher focus in independent living is on lifestyle, conveniences, not having to keep up the home. And I cannot reiterate enough that social aspect. We know that isolation for humans in general, and especially in our older adult population, can be very detrimental to one's health. And so people are often looking for a specific lifestyle when they move into an independent living community. And then you have assisted living communities. And one of the things that I have just heard over years and years and years is people often don't want to move to assisted living because they fear they're losing their independence. And what we really see so often with our older adults is things are changing in life. We know it happens, that things change, and they might be needing a little more support, whether it's with things like meals, or maybe just managing the medications, managing the day-to-day of a home. It may be help in and out of a shower, maybe with getting dressed in the day, because our bodies just aren't moving quite like they used to. And what we find is people, when they make that move to assisted living, the number one thing we hear is, I wish I'd done it sooner. That is, I mean, like, people are always looking for the future, and the future is actually right now, right here in front of them. And we find that the residents move in and actually regain a good bit of their independence, because the things that they're maybe challenged with a little bit at home, those needs are now being met in a very supportive way that promotes more independence, and people actually regain a good bit of their independence by moving to a community. There's also, in senior living, there's memory care communities, and those are for families who have a loved one that is living with some type of dementia. There are many different types of dementia. And if you are a loved one are living with a form of dementia, there are many people that live in assisted living with different forms of dementia, but when it is progressing to a point that for that loved one's safety and usually a smaller environment, a memory care community may be appropriate. And then there is also I think what people are most familiar with is the skilled nursing home. And it's what people often, you hear senior living and people equate that with a nursing home. And I can assure you, if you have not been in a senior living community lately, in the past, 5 years, 10 years, it is not a nursing home. It is not your grandmother's senior living. It is, the senior skilled nursing facilities, or the traditional nursing home, has its appropriate time and place for people who need that skilled care around the clock, but it is very different than your independent and assisted and memory care type communities. And so it's really important for folks to understand the differences and know that when you are searching for senior living, a care manager or a community relations director or sales director inside a community, they can help you navigate through which level of care you might need today. And then the care manager can help you plan definitely for the future. So with that overview, I would love to ask Julie to talk to us about what is a care manager? What does a care manager do?
Great. Yes. Thank you, Michelle. So yeah, a care manager, typically it's a master's level social worker. We actually have social workers as well as nurses on staff as care managers, but those are going to be your experts in the aging field, is really what a geriatric care manager is. We walk alongside families to help them make the best choices at that time. Do a lot of short-term planning. Sometimes it's crisis planning, and then long-term planning as well. And, it's one of those situations, Michelle, like if I have an issue in my home with my, and I need an electrician, I'm going to call an expert, right? I'm not going to try to attempt to fix that myself. If I need an attorney, I'm going to call an attorney. If I need, an advisor for my wealth management, it's very much similar to, we have all of these professionals that are experts in their fields, right?
Uh-huh.
A geriatric care manager is going to be your expert in aging problems. And we want to help provide those solutions, because We say this all the time when we're working with families: you don't know what you don't know. And that has never been more true than when you're dealing with aging issues, because you've not had practice.
True. That is so true. That is great. That is great. Well, how do care managers support families when they are trying, like, how do you help them create a plan, and how do you help a family know now's the time to make a move and these are the different choices in front of you?
Sure. Many times that first initial consultation is about assessing the needs, right? Now,
Mhm.
some families call us and they have immediate needs that we need to put a plan in place immediately. But a lot of time they're just beginning the conversation
Mhm.
within the family. It could be multiple siblings and then parents, and maybe not everyone is on the same page or agrees what needs to happen in the future. And so oftentimes it begins with an assessment where we're assessing if they're still in the home, safety, especially if there's dementia or memory loss concerns. Safety is a big issue. But assessing the home for safety, assessing, that their basic needs are met. You mentioned meals and socialization, and that is huge. And so we look at emotional, physical, cognitive, all of those things in our initial assessment, and then make recommendations to the family. Not all the family members may agree on our recommendations, and it may take some tweaking to come to a compromise. Mom and dad may not be ready to leave their home, and they want to do whatever it takes to stay there. And so then we talk about resources to bring into the home. We also start to begin those long range plans for if and when the time comes that
Mhm.
mom cannot stay in this home safely. Maybe there's multiple levels. Maybe there's a risk of wandering with Alzheimer's. If and when that time comes, let's talk about what our options are. And so then that conversation then can, when they're ready for that conversation, then we can really drill down into what is your budget, what's your location, what is most important. What we have found as the experts in aging here in Huntsville is that every senior living community, Michelle, you'll agree, has its own personality. And so
Absolutely.
finding, the right fit is so important. And so many times families tell us we save them time and money by helping them with some planning, as opposed to them jumping the gun and, going around and trying to figure it out themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. So good. I love that you do this big picture assessment to help families really plan in advance. I was talking with a family, this was maybe a month or so ago, about the right time to purchase long-term care insurance, because most senior living, there's VA benefits that can help. There's long-term care policies have become much more prevalent in today than they were, 20 some years ago. And it was really looking at when's the right time to purchase a long-term care policy. And so I think I'm looking at the geriatric care manager and when is the right time to engage someone, because you guys are always available in a crisis moment. But what about that long range planning? When is the right time for somebody to, be even thinking about this as part of their overall plan for just living a good life?
Yeah, I think, when you have long distance caregivers, care partners that are siblings or multiple family members or neighbors that are maybe not seeing that person very often, we probably both get a ton of phone calls right after a holiday, after there's been a visit. That adult son or daughter may start to notice that the bills are piling up, or that the house is not as kept the way it used to be, or maybe they've noticed a little dent in the car. These type of red flags are reasons to begin having the conversation. And it may be that, all they need is support in the home, to start with. And sometimes that's an easy fix. But to begin the conversation with a geriatric care manager can certainly help you ask the questions that you haven't even thought of to ask yet. And a lot of times we will ask families, well, what about this? Or what about that? And they'll say, I hadn't even thought of that. and also too, some of the calls we get are from physicians, from healthcare providers, and it's so tough to take care of your own loved ones because you're busy taking care of other people. Sometimes you miss the signs.
Yeah.
And even if you think you're a professional, you need sometimes that guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have like so many more questions to ask you. I do want to let people who have joined us know that there's a Q&A button where you can submit questions. So we are definitely going to be taking questions, and feel free to pop those in at any time. If you have a question that you want to ask about care managers. I have a couple more questions that I want to ask you. One is around we talk about like this crisis management, and that may be a one-off thing, but do you have families who kind of engage you for the long plan, or I guess a better way to ask it is how long do you stay engaged with a family and kind of see them through their journey?
Hey, that's up to the individual client. We have some clients who we've been with for 10 years. Caring Strategies, Care Management in Huntsville has been here. This is our 16th year. We have some clients we've been with for more than 10 years. And so it just depends on the situation. I'll give you a scenario, though, of a family I talked to yesterday. So back in March, we had completed a what we thought was going to be a one-off 1-hour consultation. We did it through Zoom with multiple family members in multiple states. And that's all they felt like they needed was just, let's just consult with a professional to make sure we're on the same path, that we're doing the right thing. They were in the process of transitioning mom into a memory care. They had already made the choice of where they were moving mom, and they just wanted to make sure that they hadn't forgot anything. So we had back in March kind of a one-off meeting. And then the daughter called me yesterday, and she was having issues with their long-term care insurance, which you mentioned, Michelle. And so she said, can I just ask you a few questions as a follow-up to our meeting a few months ago? Like, what should we be expecting for this long-term care insurance process? And so she was able to give me copies of some documents, and I basically explained to her what they had received and what to expect. And she, may not call me again for another 3 months, but certainly once someone is a client, they can always be a client, whether it's every week or every year, once a year, whatever, they can always pick up the phone and call us. And we do have, Michelle, you may not even be aware of this, but we have kind of a part of our business that is concierge services. Now, not all care management companies provide this type of service, but we do. And we have several clients that don't have family locally, and maybe they don't have family at all. And so as a concierge service, it's almost like rent a daughter. We joke about that sometimes, rent a family member. And, we're providing advocacy and going to all their doctor's appointments. We're helping them with ordering groceries. We are really in touch with them multiple times through the week. And sometimes they'll even call me to check in because they're not feeling well and want to just know, what should I call my doctor? What should I do? So it's very much like the things that your aging mom or dad call you about. These clients call us because we are their family in a lot of ways. They're rent a daughter.
Yeah. Julie, that's so funny. One of the things I wanted to be sure that we touched on, because I know there may be participants that are in the senior living industry and work inside communities, and the value of having partnerships with organizations such as yours, with geriatric care management organizations. I know over the years, I have referred so many families to different organizations, to your organization. And when I'm talking to a family member, the words that come out of my mouth is they are a surrogate family member. Yeah. It is like you are, and it's like the family is hiring someone who becomes part of the family, but is also that professional who has that inside knowledge, if you will. They know the ins and outs. They know the questions to ask. They know how to help a family create a plan for the short term, the midterm, and the long term, and then how to tweak that plan if something changes, because we know things change in life, sometimes unexpectedly. And so if you are listening today and you work inside the senior living industry, man, build those relationships, have those strong partnerships with a geriatric care management company that you can rely on and that you can refer families to when they come into you. And yes, I know our job in senior living is to do very much of what a caring strategies type company does, but our bandwidth is very limited to our particular community. And so bringing in that expert who can help people navigate, perhaps in and out of rehab and hospital and into your community, and then also be that surrogate family member, it can just be a very valuable partnership. And it makes me think, Julie, we all see these commercials on TV that add these national commercials that advertise free for your family to help find somewhere for your loved one. Can help us with the difference between what a geriatric care manager does and what these free services that we see advertised on TV do.
Yeah, it is confusing. And the main difference, I think, is that a geriatric care manager is the advocate and they work for the family to find the best fit and solution for whatever that may be. Not in all cases, but in some cases, when you call an 800 number, you may be speaking to someone that's in another state that is not even familiar with the community that you are trying to place your loved one. And so we have an intimate knowledge and relationships with all of the communities in our area. I think at one point or another, probably, Michelle, we've had clients at every memory care, every assisted living, every nursing home. I think at one time or another, we have dealt with, and like I said, intimately and closely with these communities, and they're also different. And we're working for the family. We get paid by the family. We're not getting paid in a referral fee or any sort of, way by the community. And so our interest is the family's interest. And we work hard for our families to make sure that before, during, and even after a placement, they're getting that support. And there are a lot of moving parts. And probably one of the more common reasons why families reach out to us in terms of placement, which is probably about 25% of what we do. But a lot of times they're reaching out to us because their loved one is in a senior living community and their level of care has changed. And maybe they've been given notice that they're no longer appropriate for that level of care and they need to be looking at other options. And that can be very scary and a very challenging time for families. And so that's a really common reason why families will reach out to us. And I do think having that relationship in our community is so key, working for that family.
Yeah, that is so good. That is so good. I love that. You advocate, you work for the family. You're an extension of the family. And it is important for people to know that those free services are reimbursed by communities, and that their information, once you share your information with those free services, it's disseminated out to whoever they have a contract with. And that can be very unsettling for families. Sometimes I know our community leaders will sometimes reach out to families and they just had no idea that their information was about to be blasted to, to 5 or 6 or 7 or even a dozen communities. And so I think what I've learned with working with geriatric care managers in different cities, different states all over the country is that you guys fiercely protect your clients and their privacy and their information, and you really do work on their behalf. And I just value that and appreciate that so much. How we have people here, and I see some questions starting to pop in, so we'll definitely get to those. How do families find you or we have people viewing today from all over the country. So how do they find a geriatric care manager in their area?
That's a great question. And I would probably recommend starting with our professional organization, Aging Life Care Professionals, and aginglifecare.org is the website that has a locator. You can put in how many miles radius you're looking for and put in a zip code. And that's the best way to find a geriatric care manager that's involved in a professional organization that is going, they're going to be, participating in continuing education. And that is our professional organization. And so that's one great way if you want to do a search on your own. The other thing I recommend to families is talk to people you trust. Ask your doctor, ask your clergy, ask the senior living communities that you may have already toured with. Ask your neighbors and friends. A huge percent of our referrals come from other clients who have used our services, and family members have told one another, this is who you need to call when I went through this with my family. This is who I called and was able to get the help I needed. Caringstrategies.com is our website here in Huntsville, and we primarily focus on the needs for those that are in the Madison County, North Alabama area, right in this Huntsville area and surrounding counties. But we do work with families sometimes that call us from other states, and maybe they're relocating a loved one to Huntsville or vice versa. We get calls sometimes from aging life care professionals in other states that say, hey, I'm working with a family and they're relocating their loved one to Huntsville. Could you help them? And so again, aginglifecare.org is a great place to start. And we make referrals within that professional organization.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. So that definitely is a resource for people regardless of their location. Mm-hmm. We do have a question from our viewers asking, what does care management cost?
It's a great question. So it depends on where you live. I actually pulled some numbers because I thought I was going to get that question. So the national rates for hourly, and let me preface this with, geriatric care managers, for the most part, bill hourly, and much like an attorney would, bill for their time. And so national rates hourly are going to range from $90 to $250 an hour. Now, some companies offer packages. Some companies offer, some professionals offer, a one-time consultation fee or a consultation fee. You may see consultation fees anywhere from $400 to $1,000 just for a consultation. We here in Huntsville at Caring Strategies, we really want to try to be accessible to as many families as possible. Our rates range from $65 to $275 an hour. And so we feel like we can really help a lot of people that way.
That's great. And I know you've mentioned several times just through our conversation today, that consultation, that initial consultation. And I guess people kind of, if they want you to be in it for kind of the long haul, do you set, and I guess different companies in different locations may do it differently. Do you set routine check-ins? So if somebody wants you to be with them for a journey, do you set 6-month, annual, or is it just on an as needed basis? I guess is what my question is.
So, it's all driven by the family or the client. And when families, we start talking about cost, I'll always say, look, you're the driver of how much you use our services. If you want us to check in and be the boots on the ground to check in with your loved one once a week, we'll do that. Do an hour visit each week or a 30-minute visit each week and do a wellness check. If they're in a senior living community, usually a wellness check once a week or once every 2 weeks. We're going to get a medication list once a month. We're going to check in with the director of nursing and the staff to make sure there aren't any complications or any issues that need to be addressed, maybe with hygiene, or, maybe the person lost their glasses and we need to help get them a new pair of glasses. So it really depends on the client, but we have a lot of clients that we check in once a week or once every 2 weeks to do what we call a wellness check. And, that socialization is key with that person. We have some of our memory care clients that we take out of the community they live in, to take them out for an outing, to have lunch and things like that, because that's something that we've identified that is a huge need. So depending on each client and what their budget is, we can develop a customized plan for how often we visit. We have also an option to be what we call caring on call. And it's just a small monthly fee where we would check in once a month with the person, but we are available if they go to the ER or have an emergency, and we can be that person to go and to drop everything and go. And it's just basically being on call as that family member would be if there was an emergency. And so that's a really affordable way to just have that peace of mind, that safety net.
Peace of mind is what just came to my mind, was peace of mind.
Yeah.
It's really great. Yeah.
We charge $110 a month for that. Yeah.
I did not know that. This is, I would, again, I don't know all the different participants. We've got quite a few participants. I don't know who all works in a community, but I'm thinking, wow, what a great service for residents, especially if they have, been living with you for quite some time and maybe their health needs are changing and there's been some hospitalizations and things like that. That is so fantastic. And I know that there are many different organizations that provide that type of service. Care managers that provide that. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
We have another question, and it ties into something I was going to ask you about VA benefits and long-term care. So let me read this question. It says, can a care manager help with understanding the funding options that are available?
Absolutely. Whether it's deciphering the long-term care insurance policy, which I'm the go-to person on our team that does that, or helping them navigate the VA, aid and attendance and other pensions and benefits that are available through the VA, knowing when and how to qualify for Medicaid. Maybe it's open enrollment and you don't know about making a change with your Medicare. Should you go with a, an Advantage plan? All of those types of things are things that we can advise and provide guidance on with our clients and their families. And, it's, again, very tricky if you've never done this before.
Yeah, that is really great. Thinking about the Medicare and the Medicare Advantage plan, I actually just did that with my mother on the last go around, and I think I'll be calling you next time because it goes back to what you said earlier. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. I feel like I'm very knowledgeable in some of that, but the Medicare Advantage plans we don't deal with in senior living because it is a privately funded, living option, with the caveat that long-term care insurances often pay for assisted living and memory care services. And so, like Julie said, deciphering that policy is a great thing to have someone on your side and advocating for getting you your benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And then the VA, there's an aid and attendance benefit for people who might have been a veteran or maybe are widowed from a veteran. You might qualify for this VA aid and attendance benefit. And I know we or Julie can certainly help you with something like that, or at least get you connected to the people who can. So I'm trying to think if anybody else, feel free to submit questions. Here's a great one and a very common one, Julie.
Okay.
What if my mom doesn't want to move? Can you help her to understand that it would be good for her to move?
Sure. I mean, I had a conversation with a woman earlier this week who is 99 and still living in her own home with very limited services. And so, sometimes having that third party, I don't have an emotional connection to you and to your relationship with your mom. I can go in, or a care manager rather, can go in and do an assessment and basically say, these are our recommendations based on what we see. These are our safety concerns, XYZ. I mean, it's really emotion is taken out of it when you hire a third party impartial person to do a true assessment. But I'll tell you, Michelle, our goals are always to be the advocate for the senior as much as possible and to help them meet their goals. And if their goal is to stay in their home forever and ever and ever, and if they have the resources to do that, then we can certainly help them implement a plan to make that happen. Oftentimes, and you mentioned this earlier, we were talking about home care. Oftentimes, after you reach a certain level of hours in home care, whether that's 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, certainly 24 hours a day of home care, is certainly going to be more expensive than your senior living options. And so sometimes when you just look at the basic numbers of it, you're able to see what makes fiscal sense for the person. It is always our job as an advocate for our clients and their families to be a good steward of their money and to be smart about how we spend their money. Oh, we're not spending their money, but you know what I'm saying about how recommendations we're making on how they spend their money.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not conservators in charge of anyone's money. I'll say that. But that's a tough one, and we certainly help with family dynamics, being able to go in and do a family meeting. I will say, based on my experience, a whole lot usually doesn't happen after the first conversation. Usually, it takes multiple conversations and working on an issue, for a little time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, over the years, and just whether it was me personally or teams that I work with and them working with families, is we have to get to the root of understanding why does mom not want to move? Why does mom not want to move? What does she think senior living is? Because, early on we were talking about how a lot of people equate the old images of nursing homes to senior living, and they think they're being put there or that their independence would be stripped away. And so we have to really get to the root of why mom doesn't want to move. And then I think there's also sometimes there's just a fear of the unknown. We just moved my daughter to her first solo apartment after graduating from college. She always had those roommates, and even at that 22-year-old excited for life, there was this fear of the unknown and going into a new place. And I think that same thing stays with us our whole life, that fear of the unknown. And I think families too have to take a step back and look at, the question came, if my mom, it could be a dad, it could be a grandparent, it could be, whoever the loved one is, you step back and look, did mom make major decisions like this throughout her life on her own? Or was there a partnership, maybe a spouse, or maybe trusted advisors that helped her make big decisions? And that's what you all would be in this kind of scenario. Because we hear that a lot. Maybe mom doesn't want to move, or maybe we want mom to make this decision and she's just not ready yet. And when you start peeling it back, mom never made those big decisions, or mom never made them without her husband who passed away a year and a half ago. And so now we're asking her to do something that is unknown, new, and something she never really did in terms of making those big decisions on her own. And so oftentimes families, it's helpful if they understand, one, having that outside person to help them navigate and walk through the emotions of it is very helpful. And then sometimes mom just simply needs your permission to say yes, like to be encouraged, mom, it's okay to do this. And so I get really passionate about this one because, again, we see so many times once a family has made that decision to move in, they start saying, I wish I had done this sooner. I wish I'd made this decision earlier. And it's actually the next question we have in here is, how long would the process take to help find my mom a place to live? So that's a really good segue into that. How long does it take? I know my answer from Thrive. But I'd love to hear your perspective.
And I hate to keep saying it depends, but it depends on what's going on and the availability. Placing someone can happen really quickly if you don't care where you're going, you know? That's why it's so important to have a plan ahead of time and to, at least have an idea of the geographic area and your budget. And so, what were you going to say, Michelle?
It's one of those, because I agree with you. I love to see our older adults today. And I think more and more people are planning ahead. I think it's exactly why we have people attending this today, is because they're planning ahead and they're trying to make decisions ahead of time. And I think the plethora of information that's available on the web can be good and can be a little detrimental, because it can be overwhelming to start sorting through it all. And that's where, to me, a care manager comes in. But how long is the process to find a place? What it typically looks like in the senior living world is somebody calls us to get some information, and they want to know some basic information. And then they typically come in for a visit, a tour, if you will. I encourage families to really experience the community, not just tour the amenities, but get to know the team, maybe have a meal. And then it comes to decision time. And what we typically see families do is they'll first call several, then they'll visit a few, and then if mom is involved in this process, they may take mom along for a visit to the community on the next visit. I usually recommend the family, if they are the ones looking, to pick your top 2 places, because you know your loved one and you know the place that's going to feel best, and then bring them back to those 2 places if you've been tasked with that kind of legwork of picking out the top 2. That can all happen in a span of a day or the span of a couple of months. What we typically see is when people call us, the time is now. The time to make the move is right now, or they wouldn't have picked up the phone and called. And so they're usually at that point of making a decision. Families do tend to wait a little bit longer before they make it. But I would encourage families that if you're already having that thought of maybe it's time, then it probably is time. And there are experts to help people through it. And I will say this too, we being the people who work in senior living that are on this call today, myself and Julie and our partners at Senior Living Smart, we do this all day, every day. And so for us, we have a lot of answers and we know a lot of resources and we can help you with conversations, but it is never lost on us that for you, this is your scenario. This is your story. This is what you are facing. And so we don't take that lightly. And we want to know who you are and what's important to your family to help you make that best plan. Julie, there's another question here asking if care managers are licensed and what qualifications or accreditation should they have?
Yeah, so not all care managers are licensed. It's not a necessity. I mentioned earlier, most have a master's level. I do recommend someone that's a member of the Aging Life Care Association. Questions to ask. I came up with a few questions you should ask is, how long have you been a care manager and working in this area, the area that you're needing the assistance? For us, it's Huntsville, Alabama. Are you available 24/7 in case of emergencies? Like I mentioned, many of our clients need us to go to the ER with them. Can your company provide or arrange services, if they needed in-home care? How are you going to stay in contact with me? That's something that we talk with our family members about, is what your preferred method of contact. Is it text, email, phone call, Zoom? How do you like to be contacted? And then, certainly you want to understand the fees. And when we take on a new client, we provide our complete fee schedule with all the details of how we charge so that there's no surprises. And we try to be as transparent as possible with folks. But so licensure, I would say, yes or no, you might find that, but not necessarily a requirement. But certainly you want someone that's credentialed with a background in care management, geriatric care management, if possible. And then, you want to find somebody that has some experience.
Absolutely. People who know the area and have good experience. That's so good. I have another question here. What are your options if the care of your spouse at a memory care facility does not meet your expectations?
Wow.
I'll start with
Go
my
ahead.
thoughts, and then I would love to hear what you think on that one. If the care of your spouse at a memory care facility is not meeting your expectations, I would first start with the conversations with that community. The director of nursing and the executive director or the administrator of that particular community. I would absolutely ask for one-to-one meetings. And I would do them in person if possible. If you don't live locally, and that one does say for a spouse, so I'm assuming local, but this could be for other families as well. If your expectations are not being met, I believe highly in aligning those expectations and making sure that there's an understanding from both parties of what services are provided and what the family can expect. And then if those are not being met, I would start with a meeting with there's usually a health and wellness director or a memory care director, and then there's an administrator of the community. And then there's also the option, if you're still not getting in alignment, you can always reach out to someone on the corporate team, or you can also call in an ombudsman. Every area is going to have an ombudsman who would advocate on behalf. Really, they're another neutral party, and they advocate for both the resident family and then the community to kind of come together and reach a middle ground. So I'd highly encourage if once you've had those conversations with the community directly, to reach out to an ombudsman and then perhaps a care manager to step in and help you navigate that process, Julie.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We often will facilitate care plan meetings with the staff and the care team at a memory care community or assisted living community. One of the things I learned early on in my career was expectations are always, that's usually the biggest opportunity for misunderstandings when someone's expectations don't match the reality. And so from a sales perspective, from that end, you want to be, realistic expectations. And then when the care team meets, we want to have realistic expectations. Oftentimes when we're having issues like that, Michelle, we not only recommend that the care manager be involved with frequent visits to be checking in with the staff, but then possibly we might suggest hiring in an agency with some additional caregiving support, just to have, again, additional people with that resident to make sure that we're not missing something, and that we're getting clear communication about what the issue is. Is it a personal care issue? Is there a cognitive issue? We want to make sure that you have all the facts. And sometimes the best way to do that is to have your eyes on the client more often. And a care manager facilitates all of those sorts of setting up resources, but certainly being the advocate and those wellness checks that we can do with the client at the community certainly is helpful too. Because as the care manager, being the professional and having that experience, knowing the jargon, we're going to know what to look for and what to ask about when it comes to those visits, more so than family visits.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication and aligning expectations are key. And just really, I believe that every community, whether it's a Thrive community or any other community, I believe that people who work in this space have the best of intentions. And so my hope is that whenever, I never like to see a family who's not having their expectations met or where they're not having the best experience, because I believe that all companies are really trying to do well by the older adults and by the families. And so I would definitely encourage that open line of communication. And if that particular community is for some reason struggling to meet those realistic expectations, definitely bringing in other experts and outside sources to help get there. So,
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? I'm not seeing any others pop up just yet. So I think unless I see something pop up here, I think we are going to have an opportunity to wrap up a few minutes early. I know that we will be sending a recording of this webinar out. It will have a link to some different resources for families so that they can see those. And then, I'm getting another question here about people who have no family. What happens for those people who have no, I'm assuming this question may be for families who have, for maybe residents who have no family at all. And how does that, so if, and I think I may be seeing what this question is coming from. There, we have had families or residents who live with us who do not have children, do not have a power of attorney. They don't have all of those things taking place. And that would be where the community would really be doing a good service by that resident to make a referral to a care manager. How do you help those folks?
Yeah, in some situations, we have clients that have a court-appointed guardian and conservator who are helping to walk alongside them to make decisions. And in doing so, they've hired us, to be the people involved on a day-to-day basis. And unfortunately, if there is not a family member and the person has dementia, then guardianship is usually what we see or recommend, because it's so key there to have somebody as a true advocate for that person, the one who can be the decision maker. So in some situations, the client themselves, if there's, especially if there's no dementia, they may hire us directly themselves, as the aging adult that recognizes, look, I don't have family. I know that I'm going to have these needs and need the support and advocacy. So sometimes the clients hire us themselves. But oftentimes, we have several clients that have a conservator and guardian that have hired us to help implement the plan. I'll tell you one situation really quick. I'll share just a really quick story. There was a situation where a guardian had hired us, kind of an emergency situation for a woman with dementia who was in the hospital. And it wasn't safe for her to return to her home. And with the emergency guardianship, able to hire us, get her into a memory care where she would be safe. But because of the home situation, when they called me and said, can you, help? I said, yeah, do you want to give me the keys? I can go to her home and gather her belongings that she's going to need to move into assisted living. And they said, oh, no. We're not doing that. We're not asking you to do that. So instead, went to shop for this person for everything she needed, from toothbrush and her undergarments to the bedding and the, things that she needed for her new apartment. And so, sometimes it's really practical things that can really make a difference. And she was so grateful. And that was one of the things that she said when she arrived, was she was so grateful.
That's amazing. I love that. Sometimes it really is those simple things that make the big difference. We've got one more question that has popped in, and then I think we're probably going to be about out of time. So if you have a question, get it in quick. If you have been denied by the VA due to assets, is there hope elsewhere to help with funding? So denied by VA due to assets above the limit. Is there hope elsewhere to help with funding?
So if a family were to reach out to us, the first thing we would probably do is to make a recommendation to an elder law attorney, because maybe we can, they can move around some assets to accommodate that cap. But certainly we work with other resources in our community through the Area Agency on Aging. In Alabama, there's one agency called Alabama Lifespan Respite that provides some sort of reimbursement to family caregivers who are trying to get some care. So there are a number of resources that we can point to, but we also use our elder law attorney friends, those connections to help with those types of, asset,
Yeah, absolutely.
issues.
And Julie, that is one of the main reasons too, for people to plan ahead, for people to look ahead of time at what they need to be doing, and to get those strategic plans in place to handle funding and to understand long-term care policies, VA benefits, and then private funding, and what will be available for the long term to live in a senior living community. So this has been fantastic. I took a ton of notes. I am super excited to have had this time with you. And I know that we will send this webinar recording out with links to different resources that are available to you. I believe, Julie, your organization is offering a complimentary consultation session. Can you tell us real quick about that?
Yeah, so you'll receive a link, and it will be to my calendar to schedule a free 15-minute phone consultation. It will be directly with me through that link. You can schedule time, so it's real easy to do that. And then, that helps me determine, like, are we even a good fit for your situation? If not, I can make recommendations for other resources, but certainly to learn more about this specific situation that you or your family may be going through.
Fantastic. And then there will also be a link if you would like to schedule a visit of a senior living community. Thrive has communities throughout the country. If we do not have one in your area, we can certainly point you to one in your area and help you visit and see what today's senior living is all about. So thank you again, Julie, and thank you all to those who attended or maybe watching this at a later date. And we look forward to talking with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle.
Bye.